this is Dynamite Dee Dee, and you're listening to Top of the Morning on TopRopeReport.com.
Good morning, ladies and gents. Welcome to episode 18 of the Top of the Morning podcast. I am your host, Eric Ames, and I would like to start off first by apologizing for missing the last couple of weeks. If you couldn't tell by the sound of my voice, I have been battling quite the cold over the last couple of weeks. 2 weeks ago, I actually lost my voice and was not able to speak. And then last week, I had a last-minute scheduling hiccup, so to speak, with our guest, who I'm hoping to have on next week, so you'll have to tune in to see if that still happens. I hope it will. But this week is our FastLane preview and prediction show, and per usual, I am joined by TopRopeReport.com columnist and results specialist, the quintessential Chris Jericho mark himself, Mr. Doug Berrill, as we break down the entire card for FastLane, which, to be quite honest, we are with a lot of members of the WWE Universe with this one, and we're kind of really just looking forward to it being over so we can really get into the thick of the road to WrestleMania and see what's going to happen for the big event in Orlando. But regardless, we offer up our opinions on the entire card and what we expect to happen, what we think will happen anyways, and give our match predictions. So without any further ado, we're going to jump right into episode 18 of the Top of the Morning podcast. Again, this is our FastLane preview and prediction show, and I managed to get through the whole thing without coughing, so kudos to myself on that one. And I'm going to be joined, of course, by Mr. Douglas Berrill.
You're soft, you're sloppy. They calling me Poppy. I'm rolling in bands, you riding around and I'll beat up jalopy. How you doing? Pros wanna copy, but they are just not on way. I'm up in the club, stacking them dubs and stuck in a lobby. I'm hot like sauce, you soft like balsa. You ain't heard of me? Well, you probably are. Ask about me. Nice to meet you, so good to see you. Bros wanna act hard, they need to take it easy. 'Cause you soft.
Alright, we are back, and sitting beside me is the infamous obsessed Chris Jericho fan himself, Mr. Doug Berrill. Doug, haven't seen you in a few weeks. What's going on, man?
Not too much, not snowed in this time, and there are worse things to be obsessed with than Chris Jericho.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. I'd hate to see your browser history, because God knows what kind of Chris Jericho things you've been looking up.
You wouldn't believe what's out there, dude.
A little Y2 gay?
Yeah, right, that is punny.
Alright, of course, this is our FastLane preview and prediction show. Hopefully I will be able to get through this without coughing. If I do cough, I will just aim it to the left and share the wealth with you.
Gee, thanks.
It's been a couple of weeks now for me with this, so hopefully I'm getting at the tail end of it right now. Like I just said to Doug, gonna sound a little bit like Jake the Snake Roberts on this, so hopefully I'll be able to get through it. So without any further ado, we're gonna jump right into it. We believe that the card is finalized. I can't imagine that they would be adding anything else to this, and this is one of the few times that we actually know what the kickoff match is going to be. And of course we're going to start with that. It is a cruiserweight tag team match, which will see Akira Tozawa team up with the outlandish Rich Swann to take on the Brian Kendrick and Noam Dar. So, in my opinion, this is pretty much the definition of a filler match. You know, I kind of expected that, possibly Tozawa and Kendrick would have a singles match. I don't really understand adding in Swann and Dar, even though they've had some minor interaction on 205 Live lately, kind of, especially this week where it looked like Swann had sent some guy down to deliver flowers to Alicia Fox for whatever reason. Clearly, he didn't learn anything from Cedric Alexander, so I don't know, this is kind of a tough one for me. I feel like it's a real toss-up. It could really go either way. The fact that Kendrick has really kind of gotten the better of Tozawa the entire majority of this program, which, mind you, really only came about because Kendrick originally was in a rivalry with Tajiri, who then very quickly got hurt. So, I don't know, like I said to you, the whole Fastlane card, I kind of just want it to be over with so we can get into WrestleMania. But especially this, I don't know, it's definitely probably one of, if not, one of the matches that I'm least looking forward to. So with that being said, like I said, it's kind of a toss-up. So just the fact that Kendrick has kind of gotten the better of Tozawa all these weeks, I think I'm going to go with the baby faces here.
Yeah. And in terms of in terms of it being in the kickoff match and adding the other two guys, I think it's just to feature as many 205 live guys as possible. I think they added the other two because I think Kendrick and Tozawa, once they get past this, I think their deal has more legs. This is not going to be the end. I could see those guys going at it for a while. And one thing I like about Tozawa, because in terms of building this cruiserweight division and building 205 live, he has one of the first real crowd engaging things, which is good. When he kind of has
his
that
little primal yell there, yeah.
Yeah, I think the fans are really digging him and they're getting into it. And
the one thing I've been impressed with about him is he spoke zero English, as far as I know, during the Cruiserweight Classic last year, and I know that he has been living in Orlando with Tessa Blanchard and Ricochet, but I was really surprised just with the little bit of English that he's had.
Yeah, but despite that, I think he's really starting to get over. I think that probably Dar takes the pin in this one, because I was going with the baby faces too, and I don't know if I assume Tozawa will be the guy who makes the pin, but I think that he has more legs with his deal with Kendrick, and that's going to continue after this, and eventually they're going to have a bigger singles match. Tozawa for now, but I could see those two going for a little while. Here's my question about 205 Live, because logistically, there isn't much more that they could do that makes sense, both logistically and financially. What do you think about it being after SmackDown? Because in terms of crowd engagement, it's great when Tozawa's actually, he's got this deal going that gets the fans cheering, but you have a main event of a show, and SmackDown's been doing a great job, and they've had a lot of great main events. So I think they call the main event the climax of the show, if you will. And sometimes I don't know what your experience is, but after you've reached a climax,
usually I'm asleep.
It's harder to recharge your batteries and get back into it. So I know that they need to link it to either Raw or SmackDown. Raw's a 3-hour show, so SmackDown logistically is the one that makes sense. Do you think 205 Live is good where it is, or should they do it before SmackDown?
I've always been of the opinion that it should be before SmackDown. I don't see any reason why they couldn't do it, have it start at 7 o'clock and be done by 7:45, which would give them enough time to be able to swap what they need to swap over, such as the ring ropes. However they do that, which we've kind of debated a little bit before. To me, the biggest issue, aside from the timing of it, because I know after 205 Live they do a dark main event with SmackDown guys, which I guess is supposed to kind of keep people around even after SmackDown and 205 Live so they can see that. But yeah, I would definitely do it beforehand on the network. I don't see any reason why logistically it wouldn't work. To me, the biggest problem with 205 Live right now, and I know I don't think we've ever discussed this on air before, but we've talked about it quite a bit with our buddy Lince Dorado, where you've got these guys coming in now, like Tozawa and Tajiri, and Austin Aries is going to be joining 205 Live. And the big one in terms of effect on Lince Dorado was Grand Metalik. But these guys that kind of made a name for themselves in the Cruiserweight Classic, I feel like they're going to kind of start falling by the wayside because you're bringing in so many more guys. And then, there's been a bunch of departures from TNA recently. Granted, none of them are cruiserweights, but, if you end up somehow getting a guy like Ricochet, that's going to be another big name coming in who's going to take a spot away. So there's only so many spots for these guys, and unfortunately, I think someone like Lince Dorado, it kind of spells bad news.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. And early on, when they first started the show, I remember saying, I was kind of in the camp leaning toward, do you bring in an established superstar veteran like Rey Mysterio to legitimize the product? But at this point, I think some of these other guys, like Gallagher and like Tozawa, they're already starting to get over on their own, that I don't think it needs a guy like Rey Mysterio anymore.
I would agree with that. The other thing that I've kind of debated, I don't have any kind of, reliable source behind it, just kind of some thought on my behalf, even though there's been a lot of people talking about another draft this year, which first of all, there has been no talk of that whatsoever. And second of all, I don't think they need to do another draft, because if you swap too many guys from show to show, then it kind of devalues the whole point of the brand split to begin with, because it's like, all right, well, now all these guys that were on SmackDown are on Raw now, and what was the point? But if you're going to make some trades, I kind of thought, having Kalisto get traded to the Raw roster might be a good thing for him, which, of course, would have him go into probably the Cruiserweight division, unless you're going to put the Lucha Dragons back together, which they should have never broke them up to begin with. Raw could definitely use as many tag teams as possible. Of course, Sin Cara is supposed to be part of the Cruiserweight division, but he's pretty much been relegated to working on main event ever since he had those issues with your homeboy last year on that European tour. So just kind of a thought in my mind. So if that were to happen, that's just another guy that would be coming in and taking a spot, especially another masked, Hispanic superstar. So hopefully for our buddy Lince Dorado's sake, he can start to get something going here, because it doesn't look too good for him right now.
Yeah, it's too bad. He has a ton of potential, and he could be one of those, like we talked about before. He can talk, so we'll see.
All right, next up on our schedule, per usual, we don't know the exact order, just going in order of importance in our opinion, whether you like it or not. If you don't like it, start your own podcast, which everybody seems to be doing anyway these days. But it is one of the women's division matches, which was just added this week on Raw. And we will once again get a Royal Rumble rematch, which will see Sasha Banks take on Nia Jax. And I will let you take the floor.
I'm not going to take the floor for very long, because, like you said, we just had this at Rumble, and like you said at the top, like, this feels like one of those cards where it's not much more than a glorified Raw, really, and
this is almost like it's like a secondary pay-per-view. Like, this should be like a Payback or something, or Battleground,
Yeah, and so I really just don't have a lot of investment in this match. I guess the only question is, does Nia continue to be the destroyer? And if she does, do you drop Sasha twice in a row to Nia, when Sasha should continue to be kind of on a higher level? My brain tells me to take Nia for a second victory in a row, but my heart is just saying I don't want Sasha to lose twice in a row. I want them to kind of even the score a little bit, so I'm going to go with Sasha.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on this one too. I just don't see how Nia can lose this one, because she still, to the best of my knowledge, has not. I don't think she's lost yet on the main roster,
right.
And I'm not sure, unless. Because Sasha said she was going to have Bayley's back this week on Raw for her title match, and then that, of course, led to Stephanie making the match between Sasha and Nia to try and keep her busy. So I'm wondering if Bailey tries to lend a helping hand and it backfires, or she tries to help out and it ends up helping Sasha win. But I don't know. I'm like you. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this one. It just feels like more filler to me that we really don't need. I think whatever time is allotted to this match could have been given to one of the other matches, possibly like Joe versus Zayn, or even Roman versus Braun. But I just feel like Nia could use the win more. Like, it wouldn't really hurt Sasha that much if she lost again. She's always going to be kind of viewed as that top tier of the Raw Women's division. Mostly because they still don't really have anybody, which, where the hell is Emma, mind you? After that Emelina debacle, she was supposed to be going back to her old character. We know she's cleared, so I don't know where the hell she's at, so maybe she gets involved somehow. I doubt it, but I guess if I'm forced to make a pick, which I kind of am, I'm going to stick with Nia on this one. But we still don't really know. We're assuming it's going to be some kind of a four-way match at WrestleMania. I haven't heard anything different about that. Yeah, I'm going to have to stick with Nia on that. I think Samoa Joe might take exception to you calling Nia the Destroyer, though. I don't know.
That's true. That's true.
They are both Samoan, so
I'll run if he comes.
What are your thoughts on them? Because they never ever have announced the weight of any female superstar, but now they're doing it for Nia. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I think I can see how some people might be sensitive to it.
When you announce a female as weighing in at 270 whatever pounds,
yeah, and we all know that a lot of times with wrestling they inflate those numbers. So
yeah, that's true.
So it's probably not. I'm trying to think of some of the male wrestlers who are in that range, and Nia, she's not like most girls. I understand that.
Yeah.
but I'd be surprised if that were an accurate number. As long as
I guess we'll find out if I can't remember if she was actually, because we're going to a live event here like 8 days before WrestleMania, and I don't think she was advertised for that, but if she was, I don't know, maybe we'll sneak in the back and ask her to step on a scale or something. Right. Who knows?
If she's comfortable with it, I'm just like, whatever, man. I really.
All right, next up on our card here, our first title match that we're going to talk about, and that is for the Cruiserweight Championship. Of course, the champion, the king of the Cruiserweights, Neville, taking on Gentleman Jack Gallagher, which this has been one of the more interesting angles for the Cruiserweights in quite some time, in my opinion. The last big feud that Neville had was with Rich Swann, which I kind of had a hard time getting invested in. I think the fact that both of these guys are from England has made it more interesting. Neville kind of going to the fact that Gallagher is a bit of a caricature of an Englishman, or of a Brit, or whatever you want to call him there. And there's definitely a lot of truth to that. We don't know if Gallagher's like that in real life or not. He seems to pull it off, so I'm sure that's really him with the volume cranked up. But again, this one, to me, it all hinges on what I'm assuming is going to happen at WrestleMania, which by all accounts, is still going to happen, which would be Neville taking on Austin Aries. So just for that fact alone, I can't really pick Gallagher on this one.
Well, and the reason I can't pick Gallagher, who I've really enjoyed, by the way, is also, we've talked in the past about how flippy the Cruiserweight Championship has been, and when it went to Neville, it was a no-brainer to put it on a guy like that and then have him keep it for a while. Now, if Austin Aries gets involved, that'll be interesting, and I know we're still long ways away, a month away from WrestleMania, but my early pick, if it's Neville and Aries, is that Neville keeps it then, too, because I could see those two going for a while.
My only point of contention with Aries challenging is he's so much better suited as a heel. He really is.
True.
So I could totally see, if that is the match at Mania, Neville retaining and then Aries kind of maintaining his role as a heel, because quite honestly, 205 Live needs more of them. Outside of Neville, Kendrick, and Dar, I mean, Tony Nese has kind of been doing a little bit here and there, but they really don't. They have way more baby faces than they have heels.
Yeah, and I think that, speaking of that, speaking of Gallagher, I think he's got plenty of months of good babyface time in him, but when he turns, I think he's going to pull it off big time too.
He's by far quickly become my favorite cruiserweight. He is extremely entertaining,
Yeah.
Not just in the ring, aside from his little move where he ties the guy up in a knot and then kicks him in the ass. I still think that's kind of stupid and very unrealistic.
Right,
but all the stuff with the umbrella and getting the crowd to chant tea and biscuits, I don't know, it definitely makes me chuckle.
Yeah, and some of the best talkers and some of the best entertainers, they tend to make the best heels. And yeah, the stuff with the umbrella, I said I had to go back and watch that spot in the Royal Rumble like a couple times, because that made me laugh. Like, literally belly laugh out loud when he did that.
Barry Poppins with William the Third, or I think William the Third is what he calls that thing anyway. But yeah, he's probably had some of the most entertaining segments on 205 Live, especially, that feud he had with Daivari, and they did their little parlay, and I don't know, I've just enjoyed all of it. But yeah, as much as I like him, I'm with you. I think Neville has to hang on to that title, at least until WrestleMania. So we're going to move on into another championship match. This is for the Raw Tag Team titles. Of course, we have the champions, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, who will be defending against a team that surprisingly has never worn tag team gold, and that is Enzo Amore and Big Cass.
Yeah, and again, this is one of those matches where it all depends on what their plans for WrestleMania are. Are they going to set up a big, you know what I mean by singles, two single team match for the tag team gold, or are they going to end up having, a fatal four-way of any kind? It just depends on what they're going to do at WrestleMania. And, here's a team in the club, in Gallows and Anderson, who were misbooked for months, and then they finally did them some justice by putting the belts on them. And then you've got a team like Enzo and Cass, who all their time in NXT, and as you remember, I believe it was the Raw after Mania that they debuted, right? So they're coming up on their 1-year anniversary, and for most of that time, they've sort of been Teflon, but there seems to be a little impatience in the air.
Yeah, it was not this week, but the week before, Sheamus bro-kicked Enzo, and the crowd was actually chanting, "Thank you, Sheamus." So, the potential for a heel run is definitely there. I don't think the time is right now, but...
Yeah, I think that it has to evolve. So I guess it's one of those things, like with the club, after being misbooked and then finally getting the belts, I don't think that they're going to lose them this quickly. But with Enzo and Cass, because as we all know, the company has plans for Cass as a singles competitor down the road. So if you're thinking out and booking out long-term, what's your long-term plan with Enzo and Cass? And I think that it's critical before they ever go the singles route with those two, and maybe give Cass a big push as a singles competitor. I really think that they need to win the tag team titles at some point. Like they've been untouchable despite that for all this time, but I think that at some point they have to win, because if you're going to give Cass a big push, it's harder to sell when it's like, well, hey, you couldn't even get it done for all those years in the tag scene. If they get their big moment, and who knows what they're going to do in terms of heel babyface dynamic, I just don't think it's going to be now. I think that the club needs to hang on to them for a little bit longer, but I just hope it doesn't do too much damage to Enzo and Cass.
See, I've always been a big proponent of kind of saving those big moments for the big stage. So if Enzo and Cass are going to take the titles, I think the preferred spot would be at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
We don't really know what they're going to do at WrestleMania with these. I kind of thought it would be a multi-team match. Personally, while I think there will be some entertaining stuff with the New Day hosting WrestleMania, on the other hand, I'm a little disappointed because, in my opinion, that means they're not going to be wrestling.
Right.
So I think that they probably would have been a part of that. But without them, I think the only way you really can go would be kind of a triple threat with Gallows and Anderson, Enzo and Cass, and then you'd have to throw Cesaro and Sheamus in there just because you don't have anyone else until at least the Raw after WrestleMania. But even then, the only team I can see coming up is I guess I wouldn't be shocked if DIY came up, but I just don't think NXT could afford to lose two teams because I think the Revival has been ready for a while, and if Raw is going to add any teams, they definitely need another tandem kind of on the dark side, I guess you could say. So the Revival is absolutely ready. Will they be up? I don't know for sure. Are they ready? Definitely. But yeah, for that reason alone, I don't think that it's time for Gallows and Anderson to lose those straps. So I'm definitely gonna go with the club. I guess that's a little bit of the fan in me because, like you said, I was so disappointed with the way that they were booked for so long that it made me glad that they finally got those, and I definitely don't want to see them kind of lose them so quickly either. So I'm going with Gallows and Anderson on this one. So next up on our docket, or agenda, however you want to call it. I almost called it a gin docket. Cold mints are good, Doug. We have a singles match. This will be the second match on the main roster for the Destroyer, not Nia Jax. And that is Samoa Joe taking on Sami Zayn. Quite simply said, because this is Joe's second main roster match, I think we're going to get a phenomenal back and forth contest, but I see no way that Joe loses this unless, it's been known that Finn Balor is very, very close to returning, and at this moment right now, he might even be cleared after appearing at NXT last week and saying he wasn't cleared just yet. But that was a week ago. So we don't really know what's going to happen with him at WrestleMania. I still kind of thought that the best way to go about it would be a three-way Universal title match with him, Jericho, and Owens, which it doesn't look good for that right now. So just by process of elimination, I think Joe versus Balor is kind of the way you have to go. So unless Balor inexplicably is cleared and interferes on Sami Zayn's behalf, I really can't see Joe losing.
Yeah, I mean, you said it all right there. And with Zayn, he is the underdog, and he's going to put up a good fight, and he's going to do his thing. But yeah,
as much as people like him, it's very obvious that the WWE doesn't quite see him as a top guy yet. I don't know if they'll ever see him as that. I mean, look at how long Cesaro's kind of been fighting for that spot, and he's equally as talented. So unfortunately for Sami, I think he's kind of going to be one of those odd guys out when it comes to WrestleMania.
Yeah, and I think his ceiling, unfortunately, because I'm a big Sami Zayn fan, but his ceiling is probably one of those secondary belts.
He would benefit so much more, I think, from being on SmackDown, which is I thought that he should have been drafted there to begin with. So if there are some kind of trades, that's something I definitely would like to see happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people thought Zayn and Cesaro would go to SmackDown in the first place.
Yeah, I was very surprised that they did not split up Owens and Sami. I don't know if that's just because it allows them the option to...
Anytime you need to have a good match.
If they got nothing else going on, we could just put Sami and Owens back together, which, oddly enough, is one of the matches advertised for the live event that we're going to.
Which I'd be cool with.
Yeah, I would be too, which is supposed to be for the Universal title. I'm not so sure that's going to be the same anymore, but...
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
But yeah, so I assume you got to be going with Joe on this one. I mean, How the hell can you not? I mean,
like you said, the only way that Joe doesn't win clean is if there's interference. So, yeah, that makes sense. Can I just make a side note?
Absolutely.
There's on the screen on mute in the background, there's the Judgment Day 2003 pay-per-view, and Earl Hebner took the funniest bump I've ever seen. Not the one with the sledgehammer, but before that, it's a match between Kevin Nash and Triple H, and Nash, he pushed him away so lightly it was practically a hair tussle, and Hebner sold it like he was dead.
Well, that was probably because Nash didn't want to do it too hard and tear his quad again or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, when I threw this one on, I had to make sure, just because I try to do this when we're recording just so we get something to kind of gawk at in the background. And last time, I think Holy Foley was on and kind of got a little glimpse of Noelle Foley's butt through some yoga pants. So with this one, I had to make sure to get past the Sable and Tori Wilson bikini contest so that we actually had something to say and we weren't just sitting here like, duh.
Nothing too distracting.
Right, exactly. I mean,
no offense, Triple H.
No offense to Triple H and his purple trunks, but it doesn't quite do it for me. And I did get by the Jericho match already too, Doug. So
I would actually have something to say.
right, exactly. I mean, we're good buddies and everything, but I don't need to be sitting here seeing you get in a semi or anything, All right, a little off track on that one.
A little bit.
So we're kind of ripping through this, like I said. I don't know, man. It's just, I think a lot of people would agree with us. There's just not a lot of interest in this pay-per-view. But with that being said, we're going to get into, I guess, the top matches on the card. One of those being another singles match, which will have Braun Strowman take on Roman Reigns, which has really been, aside from the Goldberg-Owen match, kind of the top feud heading into this one.
I don't know, dude. I really don't know. We know that Reigns is probably destined for Undertaker at WrestleMania. I don't think that plays a role in this match, but I'm sitting here trying to think of ways to evaluate it, but I'm so torn. So I'm gonna throw the hot potato back at you because I have so many like point counterpoints, for the why each one of them could potentially win. I mean, you never expect Reigns to go down clean, but they're booking Braun as a top monster and seeming to give him a really legitimate push.
Which is funny to me because I don't know if you've seen any of this on social media. I mean, we got a lot of hardcore Roman fans that kind of follow us on Twitter, and they have really been putting up a stink about the way Roman has been booked lately, and I can't help but laugh because they're all pissed, like, oh, you're making Roman look weak. Like, are you serious? Like, how strong does the guy have to look, you know what I mean? For how long has he been looking, like, unbeatable? You know what I mean? I don't understand that.
We'll go back to that, when he dropped the U.S. title, we talked about it, how, you've got your Universal Champion and a top veteran, and they throw the kitchen sink at him, and it's almost not enough.
Yeah, Roman still almost beats the both of them. Like, I don't know. Some people... Marks, what can you say?
Yeah, right.
Bischoff just puked some girl's shirt on this one. Austin's been feeding him beer this whole pay-per-view, and now he's, like, shit-faced. Anyway, when it comes to Braun and Roman... I'm perfectly fine with the way it's been booked because we've seen Roman be strong for ages now, and I mean, granted, we've seen the same thing out of Braun, but I mean, Braun's the up-and-comer, so there's nothing wrong with that in my opinion. As far as what you said, I actually think that we are going to see the Undertaker play a role here.
Oh, really?
I think this is where it happens because obviously Roman eliminated Undertaker from the Royal Rumble, and they had their little stare-down moment there. Now they're showing replays of Bischoff yiffing down this girl's shirt.
You said nothing distracting.
Yeah, I know. I didn't realize that we were going to see Eric puke off. And, but yeah, I think that this is where we see Undertaker come back and kind of build into that. There isn't really a reason aside from the fact that Roman eliminated him from the Rumble. So what better way to get kind of his revenge on Reigns and lead into WrestleMania than to cost him this match? It makes too much sense to me, and this is kind of a way to give, I guess, a big moment to a pay-per-view that really seems like kind of a throwaway. So with that being said, I'm gonna go with Braun Strowman on this one.
All right, I can definitely see that happening. He overcomes so much adversity. I totally hear you. The Undertaker just seems like such an independent freelancer. Like that's how he's kind of booked these days.
Yeah, I mean he's a babyface, but he's a babyface that has heel tendencies because he's from the dark side.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, look at last year at WrestleMania. I mean, how over was Shane McMahon when he returned? Everybody was so stoked for Shane's return. So Shane's obviously a huge babyface, and the Undertaker's still a babyface, but he comes out and he's basically like, "Yeah, Vince, look, if you put him in this match, I'm gonna kill him."
right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I would just hate to see Roman win here because, I don't know, I don't think you want to kill what Braun's got going on right now. Roman doesn't need it.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a scenario where Undertaker interferes to try and cost Roman the match and he still wins? I mean, do you even...
That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
I mean,
Like, you just never know.
How could you possibly do that to Strowman? Like, talk about making somebody look weak. I mean, if he's going to be kind of the next era's, I guess, version of the Big Show, we're going to be, like, really the next big man on the roster, which all the other ones, Undertaker, Kane, and Big Show, they're pretty much all on their last legs.
Yeah.
Especially Undertaker, because it's not really a secret that he desperately needs that hip surgery. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna be logical and go with Strowman too. But my word, I mean they've literally thrown Goliath at Roman Reigns and we still hear his music. So
yeah, I mean,
would I be shocked? No,
I wouldn't be either. It's like I forget the site that you told me about. I believe it was yesterday. It was something that shows all the stats of all the wrestlers throughout history, and I was looking at it, and John Cena, after having over 1,300 matches in his career, still has like a 76 winning percent, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Basically, Roman is the next John Cena, so he doesn't need it. Let him take the loss here. Braun needs it more.
It'd be huge for him.
With that being said, what on earth do you see going on with Braun at WrestleMania? I mean, outside of the Andre Battle Royal, I don't really know where you put him.
Yeah, he probably wins the Battle Royal. I don't know.
I mean, I think you kind of have to do that with him. You know,
Yeah.
like,
He needs to
if
do
Big Show and
something
Shaq
fun.
isn't going to happen, I can't imagine you would put Braun in a match against Big Show again. We just saw that, even though I know a lot of people on social media were like, Big Show and Braun main event, I'm tuning out. And I bet they regretted it after because it was a great match, actually.
It was. And, but, if you do that match, everyone kind of knows that Big Show's on his way out the door, not, in the near future. And so if the match doesn't happen with Shaq, I think the winner is super obvious. But if Braun enters the Battle Royal, that's probably obvious. So, yeah, I can't think of too many interesting things to do. I thought last year at the Battle Royal having Corbin debut, that was great for him. But if Braun's in the Battle Royal, I'd be shocked if he didn't win.
Yeah, same here. And I mean, who's to say what's really going on with this whole Big Show and Shaq thing? I mean, Big Show is kind of putting the blame on Shaq, and Shaq saying he wants it to happen, but it's kind of out of his hands. I mean, it could all be kind of a work, too, so we don't really know what's going to happen with that yet. So back to FastLane, the last couple of matches here, both title matches, but first up, the second women's match. I almost always still kind of call them divas. Do you ever have that problem?
Oh, yeah.
It's been so long. I mean, I don't want to call them divas anymore, because they're definitely beyond that point. But it's the Raw Women's Championship match, with the still fairly new champion Bayley taking on Charlotte Flair. Bottom line and point blank for me, Charlotte's got the pay-per-view winning streak going on, and I think that continues. I don't think that gets broken until WrestleMania. We speculated earlier about it's probably going to be a fatal four-way at WrestleMania with Sasha and Nia being included, but I think Charlotte goes into that as the champion. I was a little surprised that Bayley took the title from her right away because like I said, I have always been kind of a big fan of having those big moments for the big events. So I thought that would have been saved for WrestleMania. So now I'm kind of on the fence if Charlotte's pay-per-view winning streak even stops at WrestleMania at this point. But yeah, I think that her winning streak continues here. There's been a lot of talk about a Sasha heel turn coming up. I'm not so certain that that happens here. Would it surprise me? No. But if you are going to do a fatal four-way in Orlando, then I don't think you want to go into that with Bayley taking on 3 heels. I think you got to have another babyface in there. But yeah, bottom line, I think Charlotte's streak continues at least until WrestleMania. So I think she takes the title back here.
Yeah, those were the things that I was thinking of when I was thinking about all the matches on my way over, was the pay-per-view streak, and how even when she played a little bit of hot potato with Sasha, Sasha always won on Raw. She always won it back on pay-per-view. Bayley won it on Raw. And while those moments for Sasha and Bayley were never as, gigantic as, in a stadium at WrestleMania, it's kind of too bad that they've all had those moments, because those moments would have been nice for WrestleMania, especially maybe somebody like Bayley, if you do a fatal four-way. And so, yeah, I'm thinking, who gets their hand raised if they do the fatal four-way at WrestleMania? And unless they go to Nia, it might be Charlotte again. Because you're right, like that would be the spot. Like, you've had this legendary pay-per-view winning streak, and so that's a big moment. But Bayley's had her big first win.
Do you think that it was a mistake to do that on Raw for Bayley instead of waiting until WrestleMania?
I do, yeah. I think that Charlotte should have continued to dominate and continue, because then you have 2 big moments, and obviously, if you went to Nia, which I don't think that they will, in a fatal 4-way situation, then you would have a new champion. But it would be 2 big moments. It would be the winning streak is over, and somebody that the fans really love will get a big pop at WrestleMania. So yeah, I do think that the trigger was pulled too early on that. And yeah, I got to go with Charlotte.
To me, see, the talk about Sasha turning heel, I can understand it. But here's my only issue with that is, who the hell do you have left as a babyface if you do that for the Raw Women's Division?
Yeah.
You have Bayley, and that's it.
Bayley versus the world.
Yeah, one versus all. Conceivably, I could see a scenario where, right now it's looking like the next challenger for Asuka's title at TakeOver Orlando is going to be Ember Moon. And honestly, I don't think there's any better choice, or will even be a better choice coming down the road, to finally end her streak, because she's still undefeated, which we kind of talked about a little bit yesterday, comparing it to Goldberg's run. But I can't think of a better person to take that title off of her. So the only way you could really have Sasha turn heel is if you're going to have Asuka come up and take a babyface spot. But even then, that's only 2 until, Paige comes back, which is probably not going to be till May or June, because Emma's character that she's going back to is certainly not a babyface. They call her Evil Emma, so that doesn't work. I mean, Alicia Fox, they kind of made her babyface a little bit there against Nia Jax, but she's really not. She's definitely a heel.
Well, and she's
especially now
with
Noam Dar. Summer Rae is still out, but she's definitely not a babyface either. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, they probably will turn Sasha heel, but unless Asuka's coming up, I think that might be a big mistake. But of course, this all depends on what happens if, with any kind of trades between SmackDown and, when that actually takes place, which it probably would not be until the summertime anyways. So you still would have a couple of months, if Asuka doesn't come up, where it's basically Bayley versus everybody, like you said. Scott Pilgrim versus the world. So.
Right, yeah. So let's say they do the fatal 4-way situation. Is there any chance that they put it on Nia there, or is that just...
It wouldn't shock me. It really wouldn't. The biggest problem with going back to having a heel for such a long run is, just like I said, such a lack of babyface challengers outside of Bayley and Sasha if she doesn't turn. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think it would make total sense just because of the way she's dominated. I'm sure there are some people who are not really big Nia fans because of the way that she works in the ring, which, if she actually is 270 pounds, I don't want to see her doing arm drags and hip tosses and
Hurricane
Ranas and all this other stuff, because then you are completely stripping away what makes her different. But yeah, I definitely would not be opposed to Nia winning it. I think that would be totally fine. It all depends on, what you do to the roster after that, because she definitely would need more than just one person chasing her. As we've seen, no matter how good the program is, like we had with Sasha and Charlotte, eventually people are going to get sick of it after a couple of months anyways.
Right.
Just because I think people just have too short of attention spans. It's like, oh, we want longer feuds, and then they get it, and it's like, oh, we're sick of Sasha and Charlotte now. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
one in one hand and shit in the other, and see which one gets filled first. You can't have it both ways. So, all right, we're gonna wrap up our preview and prediction show here with the main event, and of course, it is for the Universal Championship. The champion Kevin Owens defending against Goldberg. So I might as well let you start off because, I mean, I don't know about you, but I kind of think your boy is going to get involved.
I think he is too. I think it's a lot like the Hell in the Cell card where, Chris Jericho doesn't have a match. Isn't that interesting? And of course, I mean, come on. The guy puts on this lovely festival of friendship,
Which was got to be one of the most entertaining segments on Raw in at least the last year. Like, it's the only thing that they've done that can equal up to anything SmackDown has done.
I mean, he goes out of his way to put all this effort in for his best friend, and that's how he's thanked. Come on, man. Come on, Owens. No, just like Hell in the Cell when Jericho wasn't on the card, but Owens was in the main event. It's just a little too suspicious that he doesn't have a match. He's been working house shows on crutches and in a neck brace. In one of the house shows, he was cutting a promo, with all of his, that whole get-up on, and, Owens attacked him. But he hasn't had an answer. He's been off TV, and he hasn't been an answer, and that's just a little too curious. So I definitely think he gets involved.
There's so many variables to this one, which, as we're watching this Judgment Day 03, the match on right now has one of those variables which could get involved, which is Brock Lesnar.
Right, yeah, so Brock could get involved. There's this whole deal, even Triple H and Samoa Joe leaning, I could see them getting involved somehow. There's all these different guys who could get involved, and at least one, maybe more of them will, and it just depends on how. And then even when you pick who's going to get involved, how are they going to get involved? Because if Jericho comes in, you would say, well, logically, Owens betrayed him. He's going to cost Kevin Owens the championship. But what if he just causes a blatant disqualification because he wants the title and he wants Owens, right? So there's just so many different ways that you could look at this thing. And then, yeah, Lesnar could respond to Goldberg, and that could lead to Owens retaining. When this match was set...
The only thing I would say about Brock is the last I saw of his schedule is he was not scheduled for FastLane. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything,
right,
but just to throw that out there.
Yeah, because if he's going to be like a big surprise, then they might not advertise him. But yeah, so there's all these different people who could get involved, and then there's different ways they could get involved. And especially Jericho, because Jericho could cost him the match, or he could cause a disqualification to keep the title on him, and which is kind of a more encouraging thing. Because going in, when they set this match, I think we were both on the same page when we were kind of rolling our eyes being like, because, we both really like Kevin Owens. And we're like, oh, they're doing it to strip the title clean off of him so that Goldberg and Lesnar will be for the title at WrestleMania. And like you said, that's still a possibility as well. So anything could happen, but it's not nearly as predictable as it felt, say, 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. Let me kind of throw this at you because I've seen a little bit of this on social media. Let me preface it by saying that I absolutely don't think that it's the case. But we previously saw tension between Jericho and Owens which led to Jericho hitting a code breaker on Owens to help him retain his title.
Right.
Do you think there's any credence to the fact that it's possible they're doing that again, and somehow Jericho is going to help Owens retain?
I don't think that if he helps him retain, I don't think it's going to be a situation where he helps him retain because it was a ruse and they and
it was such a vicious, vile attack that I don't see that.
And then he attacked him on crutches at a house show, and everybody
Right.
saw that. So I think that if he interferes in a way that causes Owens to retain, it's going to be because I want Owens and I want your title, so I want you to have the title when I go after you.
Exactly. Yeah, I saw some of that on social media, and like I said, I definitely don't think that's the case at all. It doesn't make any sense, but I just thought it was a little bit interesting that some people kind of thought of that, because I was like, well, you know, I actually never really thought of that possibility, just because it's kind of inconceivable with the way that the whole fallout really went down. It wouldn't make any sense. I'm really torn on this one. Like, if you would have asked me a couple of weeks ago, I thought they should have waited on the Owens turning on Jericho. I thought, you know, Jericho interfering in this match, trying to help Owens retain, but inadvertently costing him the title, would have been the best way to go, because it really gave Owens more of a, like, would have made him seem more legitimate, like he actually has kind of a shot of beating Goldberg. But when you kind of have the Lesnar factor, I'm really torn. I don't really know which way to go. So, I mean, since I'm forced to make a decision, I guess I'm gonna stick with what I've always kind of believed to be the plan from the get-go, and I'm gonna go with Goldberg, not just in a win, but winning the championship, because I think at WrestleMania, you know, Jericho still has the U.S. title, so as much as I would like to see perhaps like a title versus title match at WrestleMania, I don't think that's the case with him and Owens. So I think it will only be for the U.S. Championship. So I'm gonna go with Goldberg, but I'm not really confident in that.
Yeah, I mean, that was where I was going for a long time. I think just because I want to be different on more than one match, so I'm going to go with Owens, because I could see some disqualification scenarios where that could happen. And if it's Goldberg Lesnar for the title, which I could definitely see happening, you got to wonder, like, where are they going with this, and because Brock will probably win that, especially after getting put down by Goldberg so quickly on a number of occasions. Like, he needs to get his, and Brock is obviously under contract. He's not, which I think his contract's only for one more year, right? He signed like a 3-year deal, so I think it's up like next May.
Yeah, I think he's got one more left. Let me just say, you know, I have no issue with the part-timer thing. I know a lot of people don't like it, and I definitely don't have an issue with someone like Brock being the champion and not being around all the time, because I grew up on that. You know, I'm used to the days when Hogan was the champion and you only saw him on TV like once a month. You know, I'm totally fine with that. The only problem that I have with Goldberg being the champion is, like you said, the fact that Owens has had such a good long run with it, and it seems like they're just going to take it off of him just because we're about to go into WrestleMania. I didn't like that about AJ Styles losing either.
Yeah.
Which I'm okay with now, because I'm a huge Bray Wyatt fan, by the way.
Oh yeah, I love what's going on SmackDown on a number of levels. But yeah, my brain tells me to go with Goldberg. I'm going to be different and go with Owens, and I'm going to say if it's Owens, it might be a DQ win, but I'm still going to just go with him, because we don't know exactly what the plans are for WrestleMania yet.
That's definitely the most interesting part of this whole show.
Hands down.
Just trying to find out what's going to happen at WrestleMania. You know, I think that's the only real interest in this. I mean, just speaking for ourselves, is what's going to happen at Mania. Not necessarily like the potential of great matches here, which, you know, I could see Joe versus Zayn being really good. Possibly Strowman versus Roman. Hopefully Owens can pull something out of Goldberg, but who's to say? But definitely just finding out what's going to go on in WrestleMania is definitely the most interesting part of this whole shindig, if you want to call it that.
Agreed.
So yeah, I guess that's going to wrap it up for us on this one. Kind of a quick one. I think we got more out of it than we expected. I think when we do WrestleMania coming up next month,
That might have to be a two-parter.
yeah, it will definitely be a longer episode. I could see us probably going about an hour and a half on that one. The only thing I'm not looking forward to about that is the 6 hours of live coverage. So
Good luck.
if you don't hear from me after doing WrestleMania, don't worry about Eric. He's dead.
Right.
All right, Doug. So I guess that's going to do it for us this week. If I don't see you by the end of the month, I'll definitely see you at the Road to WrestleMania tour coming up.
I am pumped, and
I'm definitely looking forward to. I know you're a little bummed
I know.
that Jericho is not on the card. However, personally, I feel like I've seen just about every big name that there has ever been, aside from a couple, live. I don't think I've ever seen Booker T live. I've definitely never seen Goldberg live. But I'm looking forward to chalking Sammy off my list, Kevin Owens, because I haven't been able to go to the last couple pay-per-views in Boston because I'm obviously busy. Him, Samoa Joe, obviously, the new women, I've never seen any of them, so that's definitely the part that I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, no, it'll be good. I have seen Jericho. I was just a wee child, though. Not a wee child. I would say.
Teenage early teens.
It was late. It was the late '90s. It was in WCW, so I've never seen him at a WWE show. So.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
It
Doug.
is. It sure is.
Well, here's to Finn Balor hopefully getting added to that show
That'd
because
be sweet.
he got added to the event on the 26th, the day after, which granted it's in a bigger town than Portland, Maine. So who knows? He's not been added yet, so I don't know. I'm holding out hope, but I don't think it's gonna happen. But so yeah, we'll catch you on the flip side, Dougie.
Sounds good.
Okay, all my members of the hashtag TR Army. That was episode 18 of the Top of the Morning podcast, the FastLane preview and prediction show, which of course will be coming up tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the WWE Network, with the kickoff beginning at 7 p.m. If you happen to be stuck at work or if you have plans that night and don't want to wait to find out what's going to happen, you can catch our live in-progress results and reactions, the most detailed results that you'll find anywhere online. I contend any other website or pro wrestling dirt sheet to challenge me on that one. We have the most detailed results anywhere. So definitely hashtag get on top with TopRopeReport.com if you want to check that out. Of course, I'd like to encourage everybody to hashtag get on top as we head into WrestleMania on April 2nd to keep up with all the latest backstage news from all the most reliable sources anywhere on the web. If it's not on TopRopeReport.com, it is not a top story, and you can take that to the bank. So definitely be sure to check all that out over at TRR. If you would like to follow TRR on social media, we are on Twitter at TRR Wrestling. We are also on Facebook. You can find us there at TopRopeReport.com with no dot. And we are also on Instagram at TopRopeReport.com with no dot. Also, if you want to check out past episodes of the Top of the Morning podcast, you can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Podcruncher, and YouTube. So be sure to check out all those episodes with our previous great interviews, and we'll have some more coming up in the future for you. So definitely be sure to subscribe to the program, at least on iTunes, if not anywhere else. Support the cause. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, I'm on there at TRR_EAmes. That's EAMES. And you can also follow Doug at TRR_Doug. So until next time, my friends, we leave you with the usual positive note. Just remember, it's not how hard you get knocked down, but it's whether or not you can kick out.